I think at the moment techno scene, especially in London, is moving forward. You can see lots of new nights starting again. I guess some of the people who might have started a few years ago, they become more well known at the moment, and so obviously the presence is there. Obviously there's so much of the nights around in London. The visibility is becoming, I guess maybe through sharing on social media and mutual friends and the core group that tends to share all the events. There is more presence, I think, and the whole scene, it's I think developing, but it's becoming quite solid as well.
I've noticed in London a massive resurgence in techno over the last couple of years, because when we first started we felt like we were in the wilderness, really. You know, in 2003 London was right in the middle of the electroclash era, you know, and you know, we were really old school, and we'd been involved with all kinds of like techno parties in the 90s in this country and overseas, and we remembered the energy from those kind of events, and we felt like London was kind of desolate. On the one hand there was this kind of like minimal techno scene, and on the other there was a kind of brash kind of like queer electro clash, and yeah, that had some interest but not much sonic interest, you know, in terms of like the spaces and the scene and the you know, the crowd. It was kind of interesting, but the music was not what we were after, and I think energetically it wasn't really what we were after either. So we saw a kind of void, and we decided that we would do something to try and fill it. So we started our parties, which were very small at the time. Yeah.
Over the last few years more, the popularity of the music is getting bigger and bigger. Sometimes you do look at it and you think we lose this underground element a bit when you see that it's actually exploded to the point where you've got these massive festivals now which are techno based but not really sort of techno I'm putting out. So I do look at it that it's sort of cutting over to sort of more of the commercial elements of it all, and you're picking up sort of old deep house, tech house people who were into that music, they're now into techno, or they're getting there, and sometimes I do think it's a little bit, it's slightly watered down, but my whole sort of idea in the first place was that techno was sort of going to become the main sort of genre, and it has. And if you look at different scenes, well, in London now, I would say it's definitely the biggest sort of most popular dance music, really, and that's great. That's what I've always wanted to see, and that's what I'll always push for. Sometimes you do think that it's become slightly saturated. We've got a lot of other parties now, hell of a lot, and you do sometimes think that there's maybe too much going on. But that's better than the other way around, I think. Otherwise, how would it be? There'd be sort of loads of deep house or tech house parties, which you still do have, but I think everyone knows now that techno is like, it's the music for the people. It's what people want. It's what people need in reflection to the world we live in now. It's not all dark and moody music as well. It can be dark and moody if you want. It can have the industrial element, but it can also be very bright and beautiful.
In London, there was like all the genres popular, like, I don't know, dubstep or some, like, you know, kind of electro or whatever. And I feel like the whole kind of crowd got a little bit mature with the taste, and the music got like deeper and more sophisticated, which I think is kind of like a result of polarizing the genre and polarizing the people. That some people are into very mainstream stuff, while other people are more into like underground stuff. They are now like more deeper underground, and they have like a deeper sense of music, which carries something more than just you know, just like it's something more than just a party music.
There's a sense of community to what is happening at the moment in London, in the techno scene. Then I suppose in a way the scene is still quite divided, even though I can feel people start to come together, we recognize one another, but I still think that there is a bit of a divide, and I must say I still feel that there is a queer techno scene in London, and then there's the other, the straight, I suppose. I feel it all starts to kind of merge now, but I think whenever I go out to see my friends, and there's definitely a core group to each of those parties I go to. But I've observed that even, you know, going to bigger nights like Disposition or going to Jaded, there is the core group there. I mean, that might not be night I go personally regularly, but I can see people are friends one with another.
No, we absolutely have a core group of people, and they're incredibly loyal, fiercely loyal, which is amazing. But obviously, there's also a lot of, every month, literally every single month for 13 years, I always look around the dance floor, and I'm always surprised how many people I don't recognise, which is interesting, you know. My partner's always saying to me, you know, let's just hope that they don't all turn up on one night, you know, because we do seem to have this, you know, this enormous base of people, but some people are overseas or have moved overseas, and so they're maybe only coming very occasionally now, but we do have a fiercely loyal core of people who are kind of passionate about what we're doing, and they support us rigorously and come just about every month.
There is a group of people that you always see in techno parties in London, but there are even random people or people the first approach with techno, you know. It obviously depends which parties you go in and which venue. If you're talking about, I don't know, maybe Corsica Studios, you can find like proper techno solid crowd, and maybe you go to Printworks, 2,000 people capacity, that's a little bit more run. Obviously you can find even the same people at Corsica Studios, but it just, you know, it's more mainstream.
Yeah, so I think in London the community was quite small in the beginning, so you go to parties and you kind of recognize the people there, and then it's like growing bigger and bigger as every new party that we're organizing is like, who's that person there?
I mean, I feel like the techno crowd at the moment, instead of being just, you know, like with techno you can feel that it's something more than just partying and kind of like reckless fun, like especially from London scene you can see that it's a bit of like a community, and it has something to do more with the religion really, and some kind of, you know, like deeper meaning of that rather than just, you know, music to party.
People will have different expectations, that's for sure. Looking from perspective of DJ, whatever I play, there's always a person who's not happy about the sound. They want to ask DJ to play this or that. So, you know, people want to hear something they're familiar with. And I think that runs throughout, you know, whether you want a pop party or techno party, people want to hear something they're familiar with, generally. But I would like to believe, you know, when we talk about more underground scene, people do come to experience something different and new. And for me, it's like being taken on a journey, you know. Why would I want to be on a journey that I've done before? I want to be experiencing something new.
There are parties with their sound. You're expecting something from that party. So yeah.
I feel kind of as well. I can see each of some of the main techno parties, techno underground parties in London. They definitely have their sounds and their, you know, characteristic, and you know what to expect from each party, and you sort of feel every time you go to a party. It can be like Tales, it can be grey matter, it can be chaos, it can be superstition. Even superstition is a little bit bigger, but you can still find actually like this.
People come with expectations, but those expectations are that they might also have their expectations smashed. Yeah, I think that's part of it. I really like to keep people second guessing, and I really like to surprise people and throw in kind of unexpected curveballs. I'm very eclectic by nature, and I think that also comes through the music that I play. I'm not a techno purist at all, and so I really like to bring in different elements, which could be in terms of like performance art, or it could be about, you know, video screenings, or it could be about AV collaborations, or it could be about live sets that are, you know, are very experimental. I think it's all about programming and how you weave all of those elements together seamlessly. And what you're actually creating at the end of the day is a rite of passage. And that rite of passage, it has a moment of entering, it has a trajectory, and then it has this thing about returning people to the world. So it has these particular elements to it, these stages, if you like. And so I think it's just about how you incorporate all of those different strands and elements, and at what stage you introduce them during the night. And I think if you get that right, then you can do all kinds of things.
This is a funny question, because you really pointed the things that are quite cliche about techno, and they are true. Yes, there is certainly a stylistic to what you wear. So everyone wears black, but I think in a way the productions as well quite regimented. You know, there's a kick drum. There is a snare, there's a hi-hat, so of course it's very regimented, and everyone would have different approach how to kind of create their own sound. But in a way there is quite a strict way of what you do. Most of it because how it translated to big sound system in a club, to have, you know, the bass line driving the groove, etc, etc. But as for the stylistics, I think it's quite ironic, and I've had friends ironically turning up to my night wearing pink, because they would know the aesthetics, you know, actually, and to kind of break it up a bit. So
when it comes to actually making music, you have to sort of, the kick has to be sort of solid. It has to be sound sick. The percussion has to work, and it all does have to fit. So there is sort of rules when it comes to that. You can't just, you can do it your own way, and that's the thing. But it obviously has to fit in a sort of margin of acceptance to audio. So it has to sort of it has to work. It has to work on a sound system, and it has to be a certain amount of it flowing. People could argue about that and say, no, you need to do it any way you want, but there is certain rules of engagement when it comes to making tracks. You do have to do things a certain way for it to work, or it's just going to sound shit. The content of the track, obviously, it's up to yourself. But then again, the content of a track, it needs to sort of fit into the techno that's going on at the moment, but then at the same time you should be doing your own thing, etc, like that. So you've obviously got different styles of music, and that style does sort of mean you have to commit to doing the track in a certain way. That's where the beauty is trying to do something different. So you've got to stay in the boundaries of all that, and at the same time try and be different, whilst keeping into that genre and what's expected of you. So that's where the skill comes into it. Going on to how people dress, etc. Again, like, people can dress however the hell they want. You can dress like a goth or whatever. You do get a bit of techno snobbery. I say a bit, there's quite a lot of it actually. You get people sort of turning their nose up at people if they're not all dressed in black and all that. Personally, I don't really like all that dressed in black too much. I think having a strict uniform is just a bit ridiculous, really. But then if you want to dress like that, then do that. I don't look down at people that do that. I said people can do whatever they want. But yeah, like, generally people who are into techno, they feel they need to sort of be dressed completely in black in a certain way. But then that's fashion as well. You get groups of people who if that's the fashion of the people, if that's what they want to go for, then so be it. But if I'm in Berghain, I always like to wear like a white t-shirt or something that's a bit more colourful. Not in a way, it's to say I'm not sort of going with the crowd. I think people who dress in black and all that, they're saying they're not going with the crowd. So I think, yeah, just go with the flow, really.
I think perhaps it's about coming to a club which is dark in its nature, you know, and disappearing, and we want to be part of this kind of, you know, background, and you leave everything behind, you know, you live your everyday life, and you just merge with your crowd, and as well, it's a very tribal thing, and it's a sense of a belonging, and I suppose we're part of the night, you know, we're the night creatures, and night is black.
I think there's a kind of overarching aesthetic which has become like a trope, and it's one of the things. I mean, it kind of amuses me, but it kind of also irritates me a little bit. And as I said earlier, you know, I'm very eclectic. I'm the kind of person who likes to try everything and see what works. You know, just by my nature, and I'm very curious. So, and I do like throwing curveballs. So I like to disrupt that as much as possible. It's one reason why I love the idea of doing a techno party in a transsexual fetish party, in a transsexual fetish club for 8 years, because it didn't really fit. And this thing about not quite fitting is interesting. I think kind of heterogeneous, you know? And I think that's when things start to become interesting, because this element, this unexpected element, you know, which can just make anything happen or anything change. I really enjoy that. So yeah, so you know, I understand and recognize all of these rules, or this aesthetic sensibility which seems to cover the entire techno world. But I really like to stick a spanner in the works, yeah, as much as possible.
A bit more breakbeat, less strength. As well, yeah, as well.
Yeah, you can just go straight on. But I don't think there is a real London
sound. It might, yeah, it's more a UK sound probably, but not like proper London. But I kind of feel as new artists, like emerging artists, are, you know, coming now, sort of shaping a bit more the sound.
I think the drum and bass influences as well, you could say that's a general sound that comes out of the UK stuff. Especially maybe more London, because drum and bass is sort of linked to sort of London quite a lot. It's quite a popularity now at the moment, generally of sort of the industrial sounding, I call it like fake gub.
That's correct.
So I think, yeah, it's not really a specific type of sound, but I think that's the good thing about UK and London is the variety of it all, and you think you do hear that coming out of London quite a bit.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything that I would say this is the sound of London techno. And I started then thinking, well, why is that? You know, why could you say that there was a defined sound which you could call, you know, Birmingham techno at a particular stage in time? Why do we not have a similar defining sound in London? Is it because the scene is still kind of embryonic? As I say, you know, it really has only started to really evolve in the last few years. Possibly, but I think closer to the crux of the question is that London is international, and London's always in a state of flux. New people are arriving from all over the world all the time, and also leaving. It's transient, but it's international, and so the people who live here, based here, may or may not be English or Londoners, but they're also they might be producing music here, playing music here, but they're also travelling. And then other people, you know, from wherever, are also travelling here, and we're being exposed to their sounds. So this is why, you know, I think a city like Berlin, you can say it has the sound of Berlin. It is techno, you know. It's kind of monolithic, but it's been embedded there in the culture for a lot longer. And I think Berlin is much less international. I mean, it is international. It is international, don't get me wrong. Most of the people I know who are producing parties in Berlin are not German. They're either Italians or Greeks. But I think London is far more international, far more diverse, and probably more transitory as well.
Bringing new talent, I think bringing new talent is so important. It's so important for labels to do that, it's important for promoters to do that, it's important for everyone to do it really, who's involved in the scene. There's too many people who, they just go through the motions and they keep booking the same people over, and you're always going to have residents. Residents' jobs are there to push new music, so as long as the residents are doing a good job and they're obviously bringing something new every time, that's important. But it's important for promoters to obviously book headliners that are on point and are doing a lot for the scene. It's also important for them to promote, to bring in new people.
Currently my night really revolves around small independent promoters and well, I suppose unknown DJs. So rather than sourcing them, you know, from big agencies, I would try to promote small, you know, unknown agencies and promoters, and really there is already a lot of nights that rely heavily on bringing big names, and I suppose what I try to create is about kind of this, you know, for sure we try to be inclusive at Blanc, but I would like this to be a family affair. So big names bring, you know, lots of people and lots of random people, and I suppose it can perhaps it's like a short-lived you know, tendency, because of course you will get lots of people through the door for the so-called blockbuster names, but then, you know, what you try to create, you know, that probably is the question you have to ask yourself.
I mean, the scene, you know, the scene that I'm part of in London, I don't think it's really about the big names. I think it's like more about, you know, the crowd and people that they come for the parties, because especially in London we have really interesting crowd, and it's kind of like, it feels like it's kind of like a little bit like separate reality that you know, it's like a really big group of people that they stand for different values than the rest of the society, and we kind of you know, have like a parallel culture. So for me, like the London scene is not really about the big names, and it's more about like feeling like we're kind of like a part of some tribe, or you know, or like some kind of parallel movement to, you know, people taking DLR train from Bank to Canary Wharf during rush hour.
Yeah, it's really important that we support artists at all stages of their development. It's all too easy to think about an artist that is currently, you know, doing super well and at the high point of their game, you know. But how many years has it taken them to get there? And also, how long are they going to stay there, and can they sustain it? You know, so I think it is important, you know, that we still support older artists and artists who have been around for 20 years, because we have to remember that they're real people, you know, and they have to sustain what they've built. It's also really important that we you know, work with the youngest people, and the last artist that we just worked with, I think he's only 19, 20 years old. We brought him for his UK debut. He'd only been out of the country once before that, so nobody knew him here. But we really believed in him. You know, I really believed in him. So yeah, you know. But I'm working with artists like that, 19, 20, but also with artists who are in their 50s.
If you think about it, most of the new artists at the moment, they're all organizing their own parties, because the big promoters, they can't invest in new talent, because we're talking about big venues and big promoters. You know, as we said, it's difficult to invest in new people, because you need big names to fill up your clubs. That's how the underground movement and the real art of techno in London starts and begins. From the people they want to play, and they need to play. So the last chance to do it, just okay, you know what?
Make your own party.
Let's do our own thing.
Do your lineups, and that's pretty much what everyone's doing.
What everyone is doing.
Anyway, like.
The biggest challenge that we face at the moment in London is the paucity of venues. I mean, there are venues, but unfortunately some of them are not well run. And there's a huge hostility, I find, sometimes between the people who are running a venue and even the promoters, let alone the audience, the crowd. And without naming any names, I've been kind of shocked and saddened and appalled when I turned up to venues and found this attitude, which is like being treated like a criminal for wanting to listen to electronic music. Like, what is that about? You know, and I think this has to be addressed, really. And other cities don't have this problem. I mean, you know, other European cities don't have this problem, but I think it's a massive problem here. The relationship that we have with the people who run the space is absolutely vital. If there is no relationship, then that affects absolutely everything. It doesn't matter how good your programming is, it doesn't matter what kind of crowd you bring, how successful the night is, if that doesn't gel with the actual fabric of the space, with the venue, with the people who run it. And that's from that starts with the security. You know, it starts with the doorway, the entering. It's really important. and it runs all the way through.
You know, as we said, the capitalism is killing a little bit the vibe of all of this, and you know, as with fabric situation and all the clubs that have been shut down in the last years, it's something, you know, we start to feel this. We start to feel this even because, you know, we need venues in London. We need venues because there are no, especially middle-sized venues.
People are always going to party. Like, say, like if half the clubs disappeared now, there'll be other clubs will open up. But even if there weren't any clubs, it always go back to the old days where there wasn't any clubs. People will start partying illegally, and it's the whole reason that people were partying illegally that the police, they couldn't control it. Like, if you look at the amount of clubs there is in London now, there's more people partying in London now than there ever has been. And I think that's pretty much safe to say. There's more parties. You've also got the warehouse parties, and you've also got a large amount of illegal parties still going on.
Like, actually, the coolest parties that we've done in London was the party that we've done in the Holloway Road, in a secret basement that people needed to climb on a ladder to get in. And like, you know, in that kind of model of parties, like stuff like licensing and, you know, and permissions from council doesn't really matter, because, you know, it's you know, it's kind of like, again, like a counterculture that was happening in the clubs. But in terms of clubs, like, you know, a lot of people complaining about the closures and stuff, but I don't really find it like, as, you know, like the culture is, like the techno culture is still going forward, and you know, when one club is getting shut down, then like the other club is opening, and you know, and the party's moving around, and you know, things like Hotbox in London or a couple of other nights, like Proven It, when you kind of, you know, meeting in a warehouse with Function One, that is not like an official club, you know, it doesn't really, closures or, you know, cancels, that's all doesn't really matter. Like, what kind of annoys me the most is kind of like, you know, the Brexit thing. It kind of happened really on, you know, small towns across, you know, UK. And also, you know, I was born in Poland. I moved here to study. I stayed here, and you know, I'm kind of like, I put, you know, as a person born outside UK, I found it like really disrespectful, because, you know, for years I've been working on the club culture here, throwing parties and kind of, you know, making this city, you know, more interesting and being a part of, like, and then when you hear about Brexit, it's obviously like, you know, it's because it's gonna affect mostly like people like, you know, club promoters or DJs and stuff. It's not gonna affect someone who works in Canary Wharf and have a great job there. The real things don't start in the posh clubs in Mayfair. They start in a, you know, filthy basement in East London or in Peckham or Deptford, or, you know, or some warehouse in Seven Sisters, where there is a lot of artists that they broke and they could do cool stuff, you know. Like the culture actually ends in Mayfair, so.
Yes, there is a bit of bad vibes coming from this. Obviously, you know, we feel it even more because obviously we know, you know, from here, and we think that this is gonna kill a little bit what our dreams here in this city, because it's gonna be a problem if everything is gonna happen like it should happen. This is gonna be a big thing for what we're doing, especially for the music industry in general, because everything is gonna change from like all the law with the record labels, and also with all the fees that you have to pay for the artists that have to come to play here all the time, or artists from here going to other places. That's a little thing. This is just one of the main things about it. But obviously, it's not it's more like persona, you know. You don't feel part of a community anymore.
An incredible amount of underlying anxiety and tension because people don't really understand what their future is going to be. So it's quite understandable. But the flip side of that is that I think there is something which has united people in kind of anger and a sense of protest against that. At around the time of the Olympics, there was this sense of smugness in London. Like everybody was walking around as if they were in the centre of the fucking universe, and it was kind of unbearable. And he said, now it's really interesting because with all of this kind of fraught tension and uncertainty, everybody's hugging each other and people are being really super nice to each other. So, you know, it's interesting. You know, I remember the Thatcher days, you know, at the same time that all the AIDS activism was starting, and Derek Jarman and Michael Clark, and there was a whole kind of like, you know, Libarian, Trojan, and there was a whole kind of like post-punk thing going on in London that was really interesting, and it feels like, you know, those moments they can kind of galvanize something and make something really creative happen. So, you know, we're still in the really early stages of this process, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But there's undeniably a lot of frustration, a lot of sadness, and a lot of anger as well, I think, kind of righteous anger, and I know I've been channeling some of that myself.
In some ways I think, yeah, Brexit, I mean, it's horrible, I hate it, and I hate the way it's being perceived, and I was deeply upset because I love London and the UK being really international, but I'm positive, and I hope that it would just bring more people together, because, you know, the people don't want to leave, we want to continue having a good time together. And like what Anna said, like when you're in the club you just forget about everything else that's going on. When you're in a dark room you can only hear your own thoughts or whatever. So I'm hoping that the anger and rebellion will turn into something great, turn into a new movement almost, or an extended movement.
I've been, you know, involved in all kinds of capacities with techno music for a very long time, and I do think that it's a kind of very liberal, open-minded kind of space generally. And I think that's really important at the moment, to keep those spaces open. I think that they are under threat. And it was interesting what happened after the ghost ship fire in San Francisco a few months ago, that there was kind of alt-right forums springing up where people were actually celebrating the fact that it burned down, talking about smoking the rats out of their nests, talking about infiltrating kind of left-wing, bohemian, artistic kind of autonomous zones, and then like breaking them. Really scary stuff. Really scary stuff.
So historically, I think there is two sides to this. Techno is both political and hedonistic. Looking at the what was it? Second year of love, I refer to rave times. You know, this was very hedonistic. Everyone came together, but they were opposed something that they were not happy with. And obviously this was driven by the current affairs of the political situations in the country. But then again, like, you know, looking at Detroit techno started from decay of a middle black culture, you know, like people who were the first actually, you know, middle-class black citizens of Detroit, they were the ones, you know, who were, you know, slowly losing their jobs because of the motor industry going. So yes, very political, you know, why people have the need of kind of, you know, communicating the music the way they did through the hardship of times. And it's ironic because I feel the times now are very parallel to those, you know, with the kind of resurgence of techno nights and you know, the quality of production, and maybe you guys read this interesting article, I think it was by Bandcamp, this music being a parallel to what's happening outside, and I think it's just, you know, like, it's just like for like, you know, this dystopian vision is the reality we have now, you know, like, so we try to be inclusive in the techno scene to kind of, you know, have our own family, our own goals, and you know, it's like kind of being a silent rebel in a way, you know, we kind of don't want to conform to the reality of austerity in England, etc. So, you know, we just party, and I think it's a, you know, it's in its way, it's a manifesto.
Techno is the music of the people. Okay, you can be, you can come from any different social levels. You can be white, black, different religion or whatever. But techno is something personal. It's not something, you know, you can share with everyone. It's something that is an escape. You go to dance because you wanna escape from something, from your boring life, from your work, from your problems with your family or with your girlfriend. You just go on the dance floor and it's between you and who is playing. That's it.